Listen to this. On November 8, 2024, a federal judge just delivered what gun rights advocates are calling the biggest victory in years. In a stunning 168-page opinion, Judge Stephen McGlynn struck down Illinois' entire assault weapons ban, calling it unconstitutional. But here's what nobody's talking about. This isn't just about one state. This ruling could be the domino that changes everything across America. If you own an AR-15, if you believe in the Second Amendment, or if you've been watching these gun ban cases with frustration, you need to hear what just happened. Because what this judge wrote in his opinion is going to send shockwaves through every state that's trying to ban your firearms. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to break down exactly what this means for you, what's happening next, and why this could be the turning point we've all been waiting for. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm your name, and this is where we cut through the noise and give you the real story on your Second Amendment rights. We don't do clickbait, we don't do fear-mongering, we give you facts, analysis, and most importantly, we tell you what it means for you as a gun owner. Before we get into this massive ruling, do me a quick favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Why? Because YouTube doesn't always show you content like this. The algorithm doesn't love Second Amendment content. So the only way you'll see my videos is if you subscribe and hit that bell. Plus, we're building a community here of informed, responsible gun owners who actually understand their rights. I want you to be part of that. All right, let's talk about what just happened in Illinois and why gun owners across America are celebrating right now. To understand why this ruling is so huge, we need to go back to July 4th, 2022, Highland Park, Illinois. A parade, 7 people were killed, dozens were injured. It was a tragedy. And like many tragedies involving firearms, politicians immediately responded with legislation. In January 2023, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the Protect Illinois Communities Act into law. Sounds nice, right? Who doesn't want protected communities? But here's what it actually did. First, it banned what Illinois called assault weapons, including AR-15 rifles, AK-47s, and similar firearms. These are some of the most popular rifles in America. We're talking about guns that millions of law-abiding Americans own. Second, it banned large-capacity magazines. Any magazine holding more than 10 rounds for long guns, or more than 15 rounds for handguns, was now illegal to buy or sell. Third, if you already owned these guns, you had to register them with state police. You could keep them, but the government now had a database with your name on it. Governor Pritzker said this law would make Illinois safer. Gun rights groups said it violated the Constitution. And that set up the legal battle that just reached a major turning point. Enter Judge Stephen McGlynn, federal judge in the Southern District of Illinois. This case landed on his desk, and for months he heard arguments from both sides. There was a week-long trial in September 2024. Gun owners, gun shop owners, and organizations like the National Rifle Association and the Firearms Policy Coalition presented their case. And on November 8, 2024, Judge McGlynn dropped a 168-page opinion that basically said, Illinois, your ban is unconstitutional. You can't enforce it. Let me read you one of the most powerful lines from his ruling. He wrote, "What is particularly disturbing is that the prohibition of weapons that are commonly owned and used by citizens are now banned, depriving citizens of a principal means to defend themselves and their property." That right there? That's not just legal language. That's a judge saying, you can't ban the guns that Americans actually use for self-defense. Now, you might be wondering, why is this judge ruling this way? What changed? The answer is a Supreme Court case from 2022 called New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruen. And if you're a gun owner, you need to understand this case, because it's the foundation for almost every gun rights victory we're seeing right now. Before Bruen, here's how gun cases worked. States could ban guns if they could prove it served public safety. Sounds reasonable, right? But in practice, it meant states could ban almost anything by just saying, it's for safety. But in Bruen, the Supreme Court said, no more. From now on, if you want to restrict guns, you need to show there's a historical tradition of that restriction going back to when the Constitution was written. Think about that. It's not enough to say, this makes us safer. You have to prove that the Founding Fathers would have allowed this type of restriction, that America has a historical tradition of banning these firearms. And guess what? When it comes to the most popular rifles in America, the AR-15s, the AK-47s, there's nitrogen monoxide historical tradition of banning them. In fact, historically, Americans were allowed to own military-grade weapons. So Judge McGlynn looked at Illinois law through this new lens. Can Illinois prove there's a historical tradition of banning commonly owned rifles? The answer was no, and that's why he struck it down. Dan Eldridge, president of Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois and one of the plaintiffs in this case, called this ruling a strong win. He said Judge McGlynn states very plainly that sympathy for shooting victims doesn't give you the pretext to strip the law-abiding rest of society of their rights. Okay, so Illinois assault weapons ban was struck down. But what does that actually mean? Let me break it down for you in simple terms. First, the ruling was stayed for 30 days. That means Illinois had 30 days before the ruling took effect. This gave them time to appeal, and they did. Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul filed an appeal the same day. So, as of right now, the ban is still technically in effect while the appeals process plays out. Second, this case is now going to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. That's the next level up in the federal court system. They'll review Judge McGlynn's decision and decide whether to uphold it or overturn it. That process could take months. Third, if the 7th Circuit upholds this decision, Illinois will likely appeal to the Supreme Court, and that's where things get really interesting. Here's why this matters beyond just Illinois. 9 other states have similar assault weapons bans: California, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, and Washington, plus Washington, D.C. If this case makes it to the Supreme Court, and if the Supreme Court rules in favor of gun owners, all of those bans could fall. We're talking about a nationwide impact, but I need to be honest with you. The path forward isn't clear. Different federal courts are ruling differently on these bans right now. In Maryland, the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld their assault weapons ban in August 2024. In California, cases are still being fought. Some courts are siding with gun owners. Others are siding with states. In fact, in June 2025, the Supreme Court declined to hear challenges to both Maryland's assault weapons ban and Rhode Island's large capacity magazine ban. They just said, we're not taking these cases right now. 3 conservative justices, Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch, said they would have taken the cases. And Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote that he thinks the Supreme Court should address the AR-15 issue in the next couple of years. So we're in this weird period where different courts are reaching different conclusions, and we're waiting for the Supreme Court to step in and give us clarity. Let me tell you why you should care about this. Even if you don't live in Illinois, first, this is about precedent. Every time a federal court strikes down an unconstitutional gun law, it makes it easier for the next case. Courts look at what other courts have done. Judge McGlynn's 168-page opinion is now out there for other judges to read and cite. That's powerful. Second, this is about the Bruen standard working. Remember, before 2022, states could ban guns pretty easily. Now they have to meet this historical standard, and they're struggling to do it. That's a win for gun owners. Third, this shows that fighting back works. Illinois passed this law in 2023. By November 2024, it was struck down. That's less than 2 years. Yes, there are appeals ahead, but gun rights organizations didn't just accept this ban. They fought it in court, and they won at the district level. Fourth, this ruling specifically says that AR-15s and similar rifles are commonly owned and used for lawful purposes like self-defense. That language matters. It directly contradicts the narrative that these are weapons of war that have no place in civilian hands. Judge McGlynn compared firearms to lifeboats, airbags, seatbelts, and storm shelters. He's saying these are safety devices, tools for protection. That's a fundamentally different framing than what you hear from gun control advocates. And here's something the mainstream media won't tell you. According to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, there are an estimated 24 million AR-15 style rifles in circulation in the United States. That's millions of law-abiding Americans who own these firearms. You can't ban something that's common and call it unusual or dangerous. The data shows that rifles of all types, including AR-15s, are used in a tiny fraction of gun crimes. According to FBI statistics, more people are killed with hands and feet each year than with rifles. But rifles get the attention because of high-profile mass shootings. I'm not minimizing those tragedies. They're horrible. But we can't let emotion override constitutional rights. And that's what Judge McGlynn is saying in this ruling. So where do we go from here? Let me give you the roadmap. Step 1. The Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals will hear arguments on this case. Based on past decisions, the Seventh Circuit has tended to be more favorable to gun restrictions. So there's a real possibility they could overturn Judge McGlynn's ruling and say the ban is constitutional. Gun rights advocates are prepared for that. Step 2. If the Seventh Circuit upholds the ban, gun rights groups will appeal to the Supreme Court. At that point, the Supreme Court will have to decide whether to take the case or not. They need 4 justices to agree to hear it. We know 3 justices, Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch, are likely to vote yes. We need 1 more. Kavanaugh has already said he thinks the court should address this issue soon. So there's a good chance they take it. Step 3. If the Supreme Court takes the case and rules in favor of gun owners, that's game over for assault weapons bans nationwide. Every state with a similar ban would have to repeal it. But here's the wild card. The Supreme Court could also take the Maryland case instead. Or they could wait and take multiple cases at once to resolve all the circuit splits at the same time. The realistic timeline? We're probably looking at 1 to 2 years before we get a final Supreme Court decision. These things move slowly. But the momentum is clearly on the side of gun rights right now. Meanwhile, other cases are moving forward. There's litigation over sensitive places restrictions. Can states ban guns in parks, public transit, etc.? There are cases about magazine capacity limits. Cases about permit requirements. The post-Bruen legal landscape is still being figured out, and here's something important. With the Trump administration in power, the Department of Justice might take a more gun-friendly approach to these cases. That could impact how aggressively federal prosecutors defend these restrictions. All right, so what do you need to do? How can you be part of this fight? First, stay informed. That's why this channel exists. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and actually watch these videos when they drop. I'm not here to just give you good news. I'm here to give you the real news, good or bad, so you know what's happening with your rights. Second, support gun rights organizations. Whether it's the NRA, the Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America, or your local state group, these organizations are fighting these battles in court. They need funding. They need members. If you care about this issue, put some money behind it. Third, know your local laws. What I'm talking about today is federal court decisions, but your state might have its own restrictions. Know what you can and can't do. Don't put yourself in legal jeopardy because you didn't stay informed. Fourth, vote. I know, everyone says that. But look, the judges who make these decisions are appointed by presidents who are elected by voters. If you want judges who will protect the Second Amendment, you need to vote for politicians who will appoint those judges. It matters. Fifth, have conversations. When your friends, family, or coworkers bring up gun control, don't just get defensive. Educate them. Explain why you own firearms. Explain why these bans don't work. Most people who support gun control aren't anti-gun nuts. They're just scared and misinformed. You can change minds, and look, I want to be real with you. This channel isn't about doom and gloom. Yes, there are threats to the Second Amendment. Yes, there are politicians who want to disarm you. But there's also good news. Courts are striking down bad laws. Gun ownership is at record levels. More Americans than ever, including minorities, women, and young people, are exercising their Second Amendment rights. We're winning this fight. Slowly, case by case, but we're winning. The Illinois ruling is a massive step forward. Judge Micklin's 168-page opinion is going to be cited in gun rights cases for years to come. Whether it survives the appeals process remains to be seen. But the fact that a federal judge looked at one of the strictest gun bans in America and said, "This is unconstitutional," that's significant. This is a marathon, not a sprint. But every victory matters. Every court ruling matters. Every state that backs down matters. So here's what I want you to do right now. Hit that like button if you found this video helpful. Leave a comment below and tell me, do you think this ruling will survive the appeals process? Do you think the Supreme Court will finally settle the assault weapons ban question? I read every comment and I want to hear from you. And one more time, subscribe to this channel. Turn on that notification bell, because I'm going to keep you updated on this case as it moves through the courts. I'm going to break down every major gun rights ruling that comes out, and I'm going to keep fighting for your Second Amendment rights. Thanks for watching. Stay armed, stay educated, and stay free. I'll see you in the next one.